Good morning. Did
Hi,
anything
love.
that we just say resonate with you, Allie?
Oh, I got a lot to say.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Where's
Yeah.
my popcorn?
Right.
I had LASIK surgery yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a brand new world for me. I'm wearing the blue lens glasses just to protect myself, but this is amazing. I've had terrible eyesight since third grade. So it's
Wow.
bizarre. This morning I woke up and went to grab my glasses and I was like, oh my God, I don't need them. So yeah, I'm gonna go like right out of the gate saying what we value or what we're taught to value, and I think that's the key statement there. Shows
Taught
up in
to
our
value.
movement. Shows up in our movement. It shows
Yeah.
up in our movement preferences, and it shows up in um, modalities of how we treat, injuries or issues. And so I think, talking about men being, taught, I don't think that an individual man or men value not feeling,
Mhm.
I think it's the other way around, but they're taught that that's not how they're going to be valued in society. So therefore, yeah, they're going to come into a movement experience and want it to be very physical and not understand why it should be anything other than that. Um, I want to talk about the word somatics because it's a blanket. So I think
Mhm.
that's also important, that there are different types of somatic practices that have, in general, the same. They want to have the same outcome, which is for a person to be able to have a deeper experience in their body, being able to sense and feel themselves. It's not about thinking it, it's
Okay.
about feeling it. Um, and the type of somatics that I work with is something called body mind centering. And that is, in a nutshell, the study of, this would not be something you'd want to tell your client, Martin. He'd walk out the door. Um, so, body mind centering basically studies all of the systems of the body from an embryological and developmental perspective. So I'm not going to tell someone that either.
Yes.
They'd be like,
Yes.
parlez-vous français? Like, what are you
Right.
speaking? Is that Turkish? So really what it is about is it's perceiving inner sensation, going from there first,
Okay.
which is why at the beginning of any session I do, whether it's, because I work with a variety of people. I have therapists referring their clients to me to do, body-based movement to complement their actual therapy sessions.
Yes.
I have people, I have dancers that I work with. I have people with, different issues. And then I have people that just want to move. Um, at the beginning of every session, I ask them to slow down. Now, I might not, depending on the person, be able to do that immediately. There are people, and you know them, they're like coming in the studio and they're talking a mile a minute and they're
Okay, what
taking shoes
next?
off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is not someone I'm going to say, okay, I want you to lie down and be still now. And don't, that's someone I'm going to gradually kind of take there. We might do a few exercises and kind of, get that to kind of, dissipate a little bit.
Yes.
Um, and then some people I take them right in. Because if we don't do that, you are going to be walking into whatever you do with the same motor patterns, the same habitual movement patterns. And then for me, there's no separation, same psychological patterns, same emotional patterns.
Mhm.
So we have to disrupt or get underneath that. We don't have to, but that person is then going to be so effortful in their session, especially if they're trying to change something.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're going to be using like 6 times the amount of energy because they're just fighting themselves.
Right.
So by slowing down and using some somatic practices, which if we wanted to, do a children's book on somatics, we would say, Joey went to practice, his somatic practice today. Joey, he lied down on the floor. Joey could feel his breath moving. He could put his hands on his body and feel his breath moving. He slowly rolled to one side and noticed he felt like a sandbag. I mean, we could go on like this, but really it's that simplistic, which, we like to be complicated in Pilates. Love it, makes us feel very secure and, super smart and, but so many times it's the simplicity, so that's really all it is. It's simply feeling yourself directed. So it's not rolling around on the floor, whatever, because then you're still in your same motor pattern. It really is guided until you then know how to do it on your own, because that's the whole point, that is yours. This is your body, your experience. You should be able to take this home and do this on your floor or in your desk chair or your car or wherever. And by doing that, slowing down, especially with what I do, I think it goes with everything. I think there's some somatics that are still kind of in the nervous system area, but it really slides under that. So we're in this place with literally our cells. Yes. And this is, again, foreign language to a lot of us because we weren't taught this. It's like, what are you taught in history? What the majority wants you to know, and also what's going to benefit a certain group of people. Right. That's what goes in the books. So, physical fitness and, is no different. So there are people out there. I'm going to give a shout out. I think Paul Thornley is in the crowd. He is really speaking a different language right now, but it's like the language of the body. And there's so much like pushback because, biomechanics, that's the Lord of the house. But it's not really how, and it's important to be able to take things apart. But if you don't put it all back together, you're not actually working with your whole body. You're not working with your body. You're working with someone's idea of it. And they did all these pictures and experiments or whatever. So somatics takes us back to that whole person experience. There is no shape making. There are no goals. It is first person and spontaneous. Like, ooh, I just felt that. What was that? So you don't walk all over it and say, well, that doesn't matter because I have to accomplish a teaser. You stay there and you're like, I want to know what this is. And then that is where we move into more of what is called tone in the body, which is actually how the body knows itself. What we do in Pilates is talk a lot about posture. And then what we do with it is we're like shoulders back, pull in your belly, drop the pelvic floor, engage your quads. And that is also very constrictive. And it is eating up energy. It's not efficient and it's not whole person. So I have found that by having people slow down, they will find things in themselves that they didn't even know were there. Sometimes very far away from where the problem area. But it also gives them a chance to be with themselves. And when we work this way with the body, again, I'll say it and then I'm going to, shut up. But there is no separation between your physical body, between your emotional body, between your psychological body, your energy body. You can't separate it. So, and quite frankly, talking is the least effective. And they found that in psychology, like just cognitive behavioral therapy it's great, but man, when you have that person move, there's a what is it called? A practice called DT3, and it's dance, talk, dance, talk, dance, talk. And we could say move, talk, move, talk, move, talk. And what happens is that you move and then you talk about, you just let yourself talk. And then what comes out? And then you move more, and then what comes out? It's fascinating. We're not going to do that in a Pilates class. Maybe we are, I don't know, but probably not. Probably not.
Well, is it impossible though? No, I don't think so. I think that it can come into the right Pilates environment, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have a small space and a well curated one with the right people, and not the person that's going to be like, oh, you're lame because you said this. I actually think it can happen in a Pilates environment, and maybe it should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the people that are kind of like saying things like, that's out of our scope of practice, that doesn't belong in Pilates. Well, you're working with a human, so it's all coming in there. It's really you just deciding you're not going to see that. And so, not therapists. I'm saying things that people have been saying for a really long time. We're not therapists. We're not, but we're not asking people to give us confidential information about, their personal lives. We're asking them to experience themselves. I feel, this is just me, and it's not every teacher, but I would say the kind of like, I'll make a generalized statement, a lot of, and it's, again, we're taught this in training programs, not all of them. We walk right over. And the person, what you were saying, Martin, like, and then I think Misty, like, does that person even know what they're walking in with? Probably not. And it's worse now than ever. Worse now than ever. And so when we are not tuned into that, and it does not mean you have to turn the whole session into, we're going to sit on the Cadillac and talk.
Right.
When you don't make space for that, you are really doing a disservice to that person, the wholeness of that person. You may be addressing their physicality in a certain way. But if you're just like, nope, we're going to go through, we're going to get you on the reformer. You're here to do Pilates. I'm going to take you through the footwork, I think it's good, but I think it could be more. And, in response to, Martin's smoothness, that's really what it is. It's learning how to be smooth. It's learning how to make that session about that client. And again, I think a lot of teachers say they do that, but are they doing that? And that it's this dance, it's like, and so what is it that we're noticing? Like, it's like, well, how do I know? How do I know when to do that? Because I'll slip little somatic things in, or, and I think that takes maybe a certain interest in learning more about certain types of somatic practices.
That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
And even with Tammy, her said, like, speak to the scope of practice. That's one of the pieces that I spend a lot of time on here, is because now, Allie, you're passionate about this and you've dove deep on this. The person who is watching this, who has been teaching, even if they've been teaching for 20 years and never touched on this, understanding our scope of practice is the key piece. What can I learn from what you're saying as points at which I need to identify, we need to go deeper, and that's not something I do. I want to be the person who just has someone come in and move, but then I also want to have a friend like Allie that I can say, hey, you need to see her, and you can dive deep on that stuff and come back to me and we can just play on the Cadillac for an hour. You know what I mean? So how the scope of practice piece is always key, and just understanding where does my work end and where does the next person's work begin. That's one part of it. And two, what are those indicators I know that this person needs to dive a little bit deeper into the somatic component of Pilates or any kind of movement practice?
I think I mean, I'm going to use the word assessment, but I don't think it can be more of a literal assessment, or it can just be a conversation. And there are, there's something called a whole person approach, and they use it for health, they use it for business, they use it for coaching now. And it's really this understanding that, again, you can just ignore, and the thing is, you don't have to do this. Like, there's nothing wrong with a Pilates teacher that just wants to teach a reformer class, and people are coming in, they just want to get fit, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think I'm speaking more to the core of our industry. Like, how can we create something that's a little bit more substantial, so I'm going to go off on a tangent just for a minute or say something. Why is it, if Pilates is supposed to be so healing and so fabulous, why is it that it is not being taught in prison systems the way that yoga is? What is it about yoga? And I'm not saying Pilates has to be yoga. I'm saying that we are either saying in Pilates that you can get a Pilates body. We were talking about that yesterday. You can get a Pilates body, or, we've got that in fitness. Or we've got this other side that's saying, well, we're healing. But what are we healing? Are we healing a hip replacement and that's it? And that's okay, but again, could we find a way to develop and lift up, or whatever the word I'm looking for, is that Pilates you're saying, how do you know that it isn't? Because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I know the Yoga Prison Project. I know that yoga is being taught in detention centers for youth. I know that yoga is being taught. I've seen there was a push for a while with Pilates in schools. Yeah. So I think some of that was happening. I don't know how much more of it is happening. But it's a curious thought to me. That's all.
Yes.
So
there's a comment here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Allie, I'm sorry. There's a comment just back to the spirit, body, mind, spirit thing. But Pilates Carey was saying, I became a teacher because Pilates helped me heal my mind and needed to spread the connection of mind, body, and spirit. Misty or Allie, can you talk more to this whole body, like not separating the emotional and the physical? And can you just talk to that piece a little bit more?
I mean, I can say that it's just not separate. That is an embryological fact. And developmental movements fact. So if you go into that education, our body, so my little quote that I like to say is that it is movement that builds our brain, but it is perspective that builds the mind. So movement. So I can give you an example. Somatically, this is body mind centering. This is also developmental. So there are other schools that also educate this way.
Yeah.
So very interestingly, a client came in recently. She has a son that's going to OT, and he has some developmental delays. And she said that the CDC has recently removed crawling as a landmark to developmental movement. And crawling is one of the more complex things that we do before we stand. Some of us don't crawl maybe as much as we could have, or, there's never any wrong in this. It's simply that was the process. And then we can always return to it because we are in process beings. And the act of crawling, which is being able to locomotor yourself through space and then sit, which is what children do, and then they sit. And then they crawl and they sit. that is actually developing this psycho-emotional part of ourselves that says, I feel grounded, I am here, and then I feel safe enough that I'm going to push off and I'm going to go explore.
Yes.
So it's like a yes and a no. It's our yes and our no. It's our, here's my space, I'm safe in it. Here's that space, I feel safe in it. So that is what's happening in our movement. So that isn't something we think. That's happening through our movement experiences. And again, maybe a hard concept for Western mind, and you know, but the thing is, it's not even Western, Eastern. It's just, it's science. It's development. And people in those, like the OTs and the PTs, were up in arms about this. And this is happening, I'm sure, because of COVID.
Oh, I think it's also because of insurance.
Insurance, COVID, but it's like, we don't want anyone to be thinking that that COVID, and this might be getting a little political, and I'm just putting this out there, I don't believe in one thing or the other, but you know, there's no way that 2 years of what we went through didn't impact people, and it didn't impact children. They lost a lot of socialization time, movement time, you know, so it's just an interesting little subset. So that we really are, we biological, behavioral, social, even environmental. So if you're going to work with a group of kids who are coming from homes that have food scarcity, that's going to show up in their bodies. That's going to show up in how they interact with the world. So it's not even a matter of I have to fix that. It's just to be aware of it, so that you're not annoyed at that client, because I see this in the forums.
Yes.
You know, you're not annoyed at that client because they're just like talking at you, and they're talking out in class, and you're like, what's wrong with them? They're an adult. Why are they, you know, that is part of that, that whole person showing up. That's not someone trying to be an a-hole. That's someone that needs to learn more responsiveness in their body. And we can teach them that through movement.
Well, and can we talk about, I'm sorry, Martin, but
no,
I'd
sorry,
like
I just want to get to that comment after your comment there.
Okay, I'd just like to talk about that a little bit deeper, because I too see what happens in the forums, and sometimes it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand on end, because I feel like, hearkening back to your point about healing, you know, if somebody comes in and they're really wound up and they're talking and they're, you know, maybe they are disturbing other people, maybe they're not, who knows, maybe we as the instructor are more disturbed by it than anyone else in the class is, but doesn't it make more sense from a human perspective to explore that? Why is this person coming in like with static electricity coming off of their body, and what is it that we can do to change the volume or the pitch of that static? And it doesn't mean that we have to take away from our Pilates or whatever movement we're doing. What it means is that we're meeting them. Perhaps we're even giving a demonstration of empathy to the other people in the room.
Right.
And then we're able to bring everybody in on the same page. Does it always work? No, nothing always works. Sometimes I make a sandwich, it tastes great. Other times I make a sandwich and it's a disaster. I burn the toast, whatever it is. But again, part of growth, our growth as leaders and teachers and humans, and the growth of our students as people who are part of a community, comes from us all diving in together, not ostracizing somebody because they're having a rough day.
That is that is the definition, because I love this word, and I feel like it's so misused or used for marketing or whatever, is the word community. What you just described, Misty, is real community. And that brings me back, because Damali Frazier, I love her. When she talked about, and it's just in my head, and I love it, you know, she said inclusivity is a really great word for marketing. What we're going for is belonging. And to me, what is wrong with the world right now, and usually always, is that we are not in community, and we could go way down the line if we want to talk about generational trauma. We can look at communities or groups of people. Here's my sociologist coming out. We can look at groups of people, even in the United States, because it depends. But there are some groups that still hold that from their culture, that community is really important, belonging is important. No one is left behind. You don't put your elders in nursing homes. You don't leave your kids with babysitters all day long. And there's not a dig on anyone, because I know everybody has to do everything. I'm just saying,
yes,
it's
of
a
course.
different way of being, and it builds different groups of people, and it builds different people. So yes, we come from a culture that person, it happens in schools. Like, I mean, I'm going to go off topic a little bit again, but, you know, when we look at things like school shootings, when we look at things like, you know, most of that can be prevented if we create a true sense of belonging, where we are able to hold space for a person that is having a hard time, that looks different, that talks different, that makes us uncomfortable. How do we sit and how do we learn how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable? And if we can't do it with ourselves, oh my God, I'm feeling very anxious and I'm really concerned. You know what I'm gonna do? I am gonna like go get on that elliptical and just like, you know, that's actually not like self-care and restorative. That's exhaustion. Mm-hmm. So you haven't really changed any, distraction. So you haven't really changed anything in yourself. So if we can't get comfortable with ourselves, then there's no way that we are going to be able to be in a room with someone that makes us uncomfortable and handle it. So if we're a teacher, you know, we can, with tools, there are tools, and it's not outside the scope of practice. To basically say to someone, I see you, I hear you, we are here for you, let's do something all together. Maybe it's toss a ball around a room to each other. Something just that simple is going to create belonging. It's going to raise, you know, the vibration level in the room. We could also say we're you know, working with our vagus nerve. I mean, you know, all these different things. Allie, it's so simple.
I have to jump in there at that point. I mean, besides the fact that there are so many people that have so many comments that have flown through as we're having this brilliant conversation. But I'm going to just throw something out there, almost like contrary to what you're saying, in that if I'm having in this group and then I pause to see how somebody's doing, and I have my own stuff that I'm dealing with, I know that there's been times in my life when I didn't ask people, how are you? Because I didn't want them to reciprocate the question. I didn't want to get into what's going on in my world. So in those class settings, it's easier to be distracted by giving them a hard workout or keeping them moving or doing these things, because then I don't have to be vulnerable as a teacher. What if they strike a nerve with me? What if I am slobbering and crying in front of the whole class because someone else is going through something the same as me? So there's a sense of, how do I hold space when there are all those triggers that can come out at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I think sometimes we don't want to go there because we don't want to have to go there for ourselves as well.
But I don't think so my thing is like, I feel like we have this idea with this kind of work that it has to be something that's so heavy and serious, and like I just said, we have to
solve it today, sort of thing.
I have a ball. Sorry, Trent McIntyre. I didn't buy yours. I made my own. But he has something called Speedball. Mm-hmm. So I took one of my little, you know, squishy balls, and it's got numbers and shapes and stuff all over it. And so this is neuro work. It's very simple, but no one needs to know that. Right. And so it is from the top down, which would be a little different than, you know, this would be a great example. If you've got a class that's so revved up, there's no way you're going to say, okay, everyone, I want you to lie down on your reformers and feel your breath. I mean, you're just going to watch the room, just, you know. So, so you can take this ball, and it's great because you can still social distance. And you're tossing the ball, and then the person grabs it and they have to say the number. They have to, you know, oh, I see a triangle, and then they throw it to the next person. You are helping them self-regulate. You are helping them focus. They can't do that and think what they were thinking at the same time. They are moving into community with other people, making eye contact, huge, smiling, because how do you do that without starting to smile? So then the tone goes down, the vibration goes up in the room, and you have a very, very different environment. And you didn't need to do anything. What you got to do is participate in it and help yourself as well. So
Right.
there are all these tools, you know, that that can be done. So I think sometimes when we hear like trauma informed, you know, Tammy and I talk about this, people go, oh God, it's so serious. Like, I have enough serious. I don't want that. Like, you know, it's about the awareness that that is happening, and then finding the tools to help someone. And they don't have to be heavy tools at all. I do a lot of crazy, silly stuff in my studio, wackadoodle, because I want people to laugh. The minute they laugh, I do that with pain. People who have chronic pain, you laugh, your pain goes down. It's a physiological fact. Yeah.
There's a comment here that came out earlier from Just Like Home Daycare, and it said, "I'm curious about the way. I'm curious and also way out of my scope of knowledge. How do you feel about Pilates for the autism spectrum kiddos?"
I think it's great. I think movement is great for them. They're having a lot of sensory issues. So I worked with kids with autism and on the spectrum for years. I think, you know, you do want to be educated. And I don't think it's crazy. I think there's a lot of people out there offering these educations that don't need to be, you know, $5,000, and a little bit goes a long way. I think with children on the spectrum, you just have to be aware of sensory issues, and because they're all very, very different. But just like compression usually, or movement, helps them feel themselves. So there's a perfect example where there's sensory overload in their brain. So when you're helping them organize, so I mean, not to pitch me, but I have a workshop coming out in Pilates fusion education, and it's for kids, and it is all about using movement as a self-regulation tool and creating resilience. And this creates resilience, and you can use that for, you know, any kids. Yeah.
So not to pitch you, but can you pitch you and just put that in the comment section so people can.
And while you're doing that, I just want to say, I genuinely believe that if we had more movement in school in general, you know, I don't think kids of any age were meant to sit in chairs for 8 hours. And I know here in the States, you know, you've taken away recess, you've taken away breaks. We've done all of these things to make these kids sit still and quote unquote learn. But that's not the way the adult brain works. We know it's definitely not the way kid brains work. And now we're seeing a lot of behavioral issues at school. Well, duh, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you take these balls of energy and tape them to a chair, that they're going to be acting out. And, you know, I like, just speaking to what Allie said earlier about what's been lost over the past 2 years, I think this is something that we really are going to have to watch our children for, and others, is just that, what does that loss look like over time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pilates Carrie's comment here says, "I love this community and grateful for finding you all and the connection I may have never found." And that's, that just makes me happy to hear that, because that's what we're doing. We're building this global community, and community is, and not to throw around like, you know, all these trendy words like diversity and stuff like that, but just the three of us, it just celebrates the diversity of our movement community.
Yeah, it does. And what it also allows us to do is stretch and reach and hear a little bit a change or a shift or a twist in our perspectives that we can choose to adopt or not, but it at least shows us how vast the world is out there. You know, Pilates is not just the 34 exercises and a few pieces of equipment. It's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking to sitting in chairs, you know, this starts for us even earlier. So we are being desensitized in our bodies. So this also talks to adding some somatics into, or, you know, just slowing down is really the biggest thing. Slowing down, sensing, feeling, honoring that as much as, you know, I want to, you know, do these more complicated exercises. I am someone who loves to move in different ways. I mean, I have a membership program and it's got strength training in it. It's got Pilates, yoga, breath practices. It's got cardio not to lose weight, but cardio to, you know, get our happy hormones going. So I feel like variety is great, and everybody is it's personal. Your how you want to move your body is personal. I also work with a lot of people who have issues that one day they have more energy than the next. And I want them to understand, and I want the world to understand that a movement practice can be very diverse. And what's important is to have a movement practice. It's not, you know, about it has to be this or that. That even 5 minutes a day being with yourself matters. To get on an elliptical for an hour watching TV, maybe, you know, that might be a goal or whatever, but hopefully you supplement that with some body time, you know, because we are being desensitized the minute we have diapers put on us. So I do a workshop, I'm going to offer it, and it's called The Tail End of Things. And because in Pilates, we talk a lot about the pelvis and we kind of view it as one thing. But our tail is very important. It's considered a limb. And when we work with the tail in a certain way, we actually free up a lot of the hip socket. We create balance between the, you know, our spine, lots of cool stuff. The minute we put a diaper on and we sit in a chair, that gets numbed. The minute we put booties on babies and socks, we numb the feet. So that early, we are numbing ourselves. And so that's where I would love to see, you know, Pilates expanding. I think Pilates is amazing. I mean, why do you think I'm a Pilates teacher? But I think we could do more with it. I really
Like
agree.
it's like your iPhone in your pocket. You could use it to text message, but it has so much more potential, and it can be used for so many powerful things, but we're limited in terms of understanding its capacity. And at the same time, like March Madness, I love the fact that people are putting up these exercises, and that's great. And that's a starting point. Like, that is just scratching the surface. I hope that is a teaser to get people into understanding how much more we can do with this movement potential.
I think that's it. It's like you need to have layers. So someone who's new to Pilates, you know, well, they can be with me because I have that education, so I can take something complicated and simplify it. But also, so much of what I do, you have to feel it. You're not going to read what I say and be like, well, maybe you are, but a lot of times what happens is someone will be like, I'm not exactly sure what this is, and then they do it, and they're like, oh my God. Oh my God.
And I think that's everything related to movement. You know, people think that they can pick up a book and learn how to dance. It's impossible. I don't care how great you are with words and how you translate things, unless you are actually getting it by feeling it and doing it and exploring it. It's just not going to happen. You can probably create similar shapes. You may be even able to guess what they're going at, but there's so much more behind it.
Great analogy.
And we have to know that as Pilates teachers. We just do.
Yeah. And that goes along with the, you know, why are people talking so much when they teach? That pulls someone out. They can't be in themselves. So there are long pauses in my teaching. That doesn't go well on film. So, but there are, because I want that person, I just gave them a little nugget of information. If I keep talking to them, they're like, what? You know, I also invite people to close their eyes, so that they can move, you know, more inside of themselves.
Sure. This comment here. So just like home daycare, I believe is a person that I've started to connect with on Nextdoor app, which is another kind of community app here in Mississauga, Meadowvale. So I'm so glad that she's here. So having a non-Pilates, non-movement person in the chat, you see how powerful these conversations are, because like Misty and I just, Allie, we think you're awesome. We just know that you do this stuff. So we can just smile and nod through this because it makes sense. So for someone else, this is like mind blowing how we can find these connections, and it just like, boom. So I love seeing the questions that come through. So she's asking, so as someone who runs a daycare, I'm responsible for the children's movement breaks. How can I set them up? How can I set them up for success?
I would say there's some very simple things that, so developmentally, we have certain patterns we go through. So one of them, the fancy word is homologous, but really it's just upper lower body. And it's a very grounding. So if we think about positions like being in a plank.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Sorry. If we think about, like, let's take a plank, because that's easy. Everybody knows what a plank is, or I would assume. Think about how that makes you feel. Why do we like to plank so much? Well, maybe some people don't. Some people don't, right? So, but it's, you know, and then people want to do it because it makes us feel powerful. It makes us feel really connected and grounded. So that's an example of a homologous pattern. And there's the mind of it. So we have the mind of the movement. So that's a great thing. So having kids pushing, starting with little, pushing, hands and knees, positions like that. And
bunny hops, like
yes,
that kind
and
of
then
thing.
yeah, bunny hops, being frogs. All of this is in my workshop. I'm selling myself right now. But I explain it in much more depth. And then you move into body sides. So this would be, now I have a right and a left. Now I move out of this really secure place and I got choices. So you can see how movement has a mind. So this is what's happening all together. And then we would move from that into that contralateral. And contralateral is so important because this is where we cross midline. So if you can't cross midline, you're going to have a challenge writing. You're going to have a challenge reading. So you can go back and you go back to your homologous and your homolateral lizard patterns, one side, other side. And these are actually strengthening our brain, strengthening our learning processes, strengthening our psycho-emotional self. So if you don't feel like, I've spent time in this, this homologous, and then I start having to go out here, I'm not going to feel safe.
Right.
So, and then with, same thing with trauma, we can pushing. So yeah. And so there's a whole education about this, but some of it's real simple.
That's a great answer. I hope that just, Stephanie, I hope that kind of just, yes, here comes a comment. Sorry, just, we do Cosmic Kids yoga and lots of music and movement, but I feel like the conversation is making me more aware of how important it is. Yes, that's the intentionality that comes out of these conversations is so great.
Yeah. And I think I love the fact that Stephanie's aware that that's important. Like that's in her classes, and I'm loving this. Toddlers make obstacle courses. Yeah, I mean, like it's because kids aren't moving enough, and this is part of their ability to emotionally express themselves as adults. There's no separation. And when you work this way, you will see this in clients. You will see clients come in. I always watch how they get out of their car, how they come into my studio. Are they like this? This is like our basic patterns are yield, push, reach, pull. You know, do I have someone that's walking into my studio that's all push? They have not learned how to soften into themselves. You know, men are a lot of push. Men are a lot of push. I'm going to take up the space. I'm going to move forward. Or
Big
you have
chest.
people that are reaching. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I have 5 minutes thing. I'm so busy. You know, and they're going to like, you know, end up exhausted. So teaching movement patterns of yielding, or if someone needs to learn, you know, it all goes back to yielding. And sometimes we didn't get that when we were babies. Like, so, or we didn't get that. So all of this is, yeah, you can see how it all, good. Yeah.
Misty, do we want to have Allie on again, like for the next 6 weeks to unpack some more stuff?
I would love it.
I think there's gonna be like a side workshop during a core conversations.
Right?
I'm pretty certain. And you know what? I think it's really important. Again, nobody is saying that you have to get Allie level knowledge, but you do, in my opinion anyway. I don't mean to boss people around, but maybe I am. You do have to get at least a base level of understanding of what you're dealing with, because you're not just dealing with a body. If we were just dealing with a body, we would be in a cadaver lab. But we are dealing with human beings with souls and thoughts and feelings and issues. And to ask them to leave it on the table or outside of the studio is to ask them to just come in and make shapes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also to speak to Misty, what you said at the beginning, it is, they don't even know. We value what we're taught. So if we're told to value winning, power, because that's what we're taught, right? So things
production.
Yes. So you have people coming in saying, I don't know why I feel this way. And it's like, well, for most of your life, you weren't allowed to actually be the whole human that you actually are. So your body is starting to go, I don't think so. So, you know, we can, one of the interesting things, and there's, you know, research coming out, Dr. I can't remember his first name, Dr. Hanscom, he's a spinal surgeon. He has this protocol before his patients come in for surgery. A surgeon is doing this. Love him. One of the things is he has them write down every crappy feeling that they're feeling, all the, you know, all of the anger and the rage because they've had this chronic pain. This is happening to them. He says, I want you to write it down 5 minutes and then rip it up. He also has them doing like body awareness, these kinds of things. Patients of his will cancel their surgery because they don't need it anymore, because it's not that they needed the surgery, even though MRIs might show that. They don't have pain. It's all about pain. So it's about what you're feeling, what you're, how you're perceiving it, how your control is over that. And I have had clients, I had one client, this is not to toot my horn, it's just a true story, because I'm still learning all of this. I still stand back and go, oh my God, like what? We like to think that it's the, this is writing to you, Martin, you know, we like to think that we've created these 5 amazing exercises for, I'm just going to use back, I'm just going to use back pain.
Right.
5 amazing exercises for back pain. And if you do these exercises in this specific order, exactly how I told you, you're going to feel better. 9 times out of 10, that person's going to feel better. Was it those exercises? Was it the sequencing? Or was it the fact that they actually felt like they were distracted? So they weren't having the thought processes from the perceiving of the feelings that are coming up, and feelings and emotions come from sensations in the body. And so is it that, or was it that you listened to them? They felt safe. When we feel safe, pain levels go down. So I have a client that came to me with this horrible, you know, hip issue, piriformis syndrome, like all this stuff. She had a shot, they hit her nerve. It was just compounded. And I gave her a few things to do. We did a lot of like somatic work, just getting her nervous system to calm down and more regulation, and creating a space where she had more control. And she said to me at one point, because she had gotten a massage at my studio, and she said, oh, the massage therapist told me I should do these 2 exercises, but I was not going to do them until you told me they were okay. And I was like, now I could have been like, well, let me see them. Let me, you know. And I just said, here's how it is. There's nothing wrong with you. If it feels good, do it. If it hurts you, don't. You don't have any, there's no movement like inhibitions. And so now she's like doing everything. That has been like 3 weeks later from like a year and a half of her like having this pain.
Yeah.
Was it
It's
me?
agency, though. It's
Yes.
saying
Agency. Yes.
you're not broken.
Yep.
You can explore.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can be curious.
Yeah.
And I think one of the issues with staying wed to the whole biomechanics or bust model is that we're saying, okay, this is it. This is your dimension. You are flat Stanley. If
Yes.
it doesn't exist right here, it's wrong, it's bad, it doesn't exist. And what we have to be careful of as teachers is getting people so bogged down in that, pushed into that box, that they become afraid of their own body. They feel that they cannot make good movement choices, and therefore they cannot access the body that they were given. And I think that happens a lot. I especially think that happens with the medical model. You know, somebody gets hurt, they go to see an orthopedist who very often does surgery because that's what they know.
That's what they value.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than taking other steps. Sorry, Martin.
No, it's okay. We have to end.
I do, yeah.
I have clients coming out. I'm sure you guys do too.
Yeah.
But that's a great jump off point for the next conversation, like that biomechanics or bust, and what do we know, and not having agency, like you said there, Misty, is just so powerful. And I think that there's so much to be, continue to unpack with that. And I apologize to all these people who didn't get their comments through here. This is such a rich conversation. So, Allie, thank you so much. Misty, loving my Wednesdays with you.
Same. Thank you, Allie, for being here.
Yay! I love it.
I hope your eyes feel good.
They feel amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And we will do this again. Yes. Fabulous day, everyone. Okay.
Bye,
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.